Hey everyone, this is Swirt. No fire spitting with BS01 update coming this week, so instead, please enjoy this interview we had with Geoff Hughes, the voice actor who portrayed Lewa in Bionicle: The Journey to One, which was recorded back in 2016. The next episode of Fire Spitting will be the week after. Have a great American Independence Day and a happy belated Canada Day, and enjoy.
I am Lewa, Toa of the Jungle, and welcome to the BS01 podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the new BS01 podcast, the podcast for Bionicle Sector 01, the largest and most up-to-date database of Bionicle information in the world that you can look up anytime and anywhere. And this is your host, Spirit, also known as David. Just a reminder, we're still running our theme song contest. Don't forget to send your entries to biosector01 at outlook.com. We still have that gigantic Lego set that you could win. And just a bit of heads up for this episode. We had to record the interview over the phone, so there might be a slight dip in quality compared to the previous interviews, but I think for the most part I've managed to clean it up a bit. And so here's our final interview from the cast of Bionicle: The Journey to One. All right, I'd like to welcome today's guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Geoff Hughes, and I play the voice of Lewa, Master of Jungle, and I'm speaking to you from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I just hope I sound like Lewa enough. Funny thing to say, huh? Yeah. Funny thing to say, but there you go. It's funny because, it's very different from the very first time I heard, any voiceover guy do a Lewa voice. It almost sounded like the same guy doing, 6 versions of and, they were just the first Google, I guess YouTube. I just YouTubed Bionicle, and there were some links, I guess, when I was first auditioning, and they were like, have a listen to this stuff. Actually, I don't even remember now whether or not they said, listen to these. They might not have, because it's very, very different, what I heard. And now I presume that it was one of the movies, it was clearly one of the previous movies or TV series, but they used, unless I'm mistaken, they used a lot of footage in the prologue of The Journey to One. It's old stuff from and it's kind of neat how I guess they're basically, it's a reboot, and yet they're not dismissing all that stuff that has preceded it, as far as I can tell, because it's in the prologue.
For the stuff that showed up in the prologue, that was from the previous year. So that's all part of the larger
previous
reboot.
Year?
Yeah, so that's from 2015.
A larger reboot.
So the line started in 2001. Then they rebooted it in 2015. And I guess the Journey to One is a continuation of the 2015 reboot.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I'm thinking you might know better than me. Are people digging this new series?
Sort of. The thing about the internet is that you get very extreme opinions. I've seen people who say it's the best thing ever, and then other people who, I guess they've grown out of Bionicle and haven't quite realized it yet. But I think lots of people are really, really liked your character, especially because he's like the star of episode 1, which I think a lot of people were excited about.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting for me too when I finally watched it, and I was like, holy smokes! Because the one thing I could tell from my research was that Tahu is the leader, and I just got that impression, that he was the main character, and that's all great, and awesome. So when I was cast as Lewa, I was like, oh, well, I got the second guy, but that's okay, it'll still be awesome. And then, of course, I did all the recording and everything, and then as I watched it, I was kind of like, hey, you know what? There's well, kind of what you just said. It sort of feels like Lewa is the star of episode 1.
Yeah, and I think that's what surprised a few people is that, like, Tahu, especially in the previous one, he's always like the main character, and everything sort of more revolves around him. And I guess to see one of the more secondary heroes get to have the spotlight was something new and different that I think a lot of people really liked.
Well, awesome, because what's interesting, what I thought was interesting, and I tell my friends and family, is that I read for both Tahu and Lewa, and they basically put me forward as both roles. And so I recorded episode 1 as Tahu and as Lewa, and also actually episode 1 and 2. They wanted to have a real serious listen to me as both roles. And I'm happy to say that, they found me appropriate for Lewa. And at first I thought, oh, phooey, because I'd rather be the guy who looks like the number 1 hero. But then watching episode 1 and 2, I was like, holy smokes, especially episode 1, because, I meet Makuta and fight him. I'm like, wow, I really got featured in this one, and I got really lucky. I no longer feel disappointed that I didn't land Tahu, because even watching the trailer, the first character you saw was Lewa. Anyway, I'm sorry. Now I feel like I'm shooting my mouth off, and that's the last thing I want to do. I'm just very, very lucky, very grateful, and I'm so happy to have had this, this role. It's really the most exciting role I think I've ever had, David.
Yeah, well, it's like Lee was a very popular character just overall. That people really like he's like the jokester. He's like the most fun character, whereas everyone's usually more serious and they're all business, but he often gets a lot of the better lines.
Yeah, well, that became apparent to me as we were recording them, and, that was the direction I was getting. And it's funny because in real life, in this show, like you say, Lewa is the levity, and he's having fun and cracking jokes. He's also not the biggest Bionicle. Like, he's kind of smaller. He almost seems like the little brother, because the other guys are just, most of them are bigger, And has that always been a thing? Has Lewa always been a bit smaller, or am I imagining that, or what do you think?
Do you have the Lewa Lego set?
I actually purchased 2 of them, and I gave one to my Lego loving buddy Dan and castmate, and I bought one for myself and I built it, but I didn't have his spirit creature or an Okatolan citizen. It's like just the little guys.
Mm-hmm.
The regular sort of. I couldn't find any of those for Lewa, but I did buy a Lewa and I built them. However, all my pals that I watched episode 1 and 2 with, they had a showcase of action figures and just the stuff that they love, Batman and Superman and all kinds of stuff, right? And they just. So anyway, long story short, I said, hey guys, it was really special for me to watch this TV show with you all and to have you cheering me on and basically supporting me and just being there for me. So I'd like to give you this figure that I built, and I'd be honored if you put it in your showcase here, with your other pop culture stuff. And they see, because some of those guys were they're all younger than me, right? I'm 43. So these guys played with Bionicle. They know this stuff. And I was like, anyway, so I just, in a corny gesture, I gave away my Lewa.
Oh, okay. But you did have a Lewa at one point, but that's a nice story, though.
I did. Yes.
Anyway, yeah, back to your question. Yeah, it seems to be something that they're doing as part of the reboot. So in the original Bionicle, all the Toa were more or less the same size, same shape. They were sort of the same everything, only just different colors. And I think in this version of Bionicle, they're making more of an effort to differentiate them physically. So they've got different pieces, they're different sizes. And yeah, as you say, Lewa is one of the smaller ones. But I guess that's because he's supposed to be agile and the most athletic out of all of them.
That's cool. Well, in real life, I'm actually 215 pounds and 6 feet tall, so I'm not one of the smaller guys around, just in my day-to-day life. it's kind of funny because I played a boxer. One of my other exciting, prior to this, maybe the most exciting thing that happened, and my bucket list was I got to play a boxer on a TV show, a CBS TV show, so like a legit, ACTRA. It was all union. It was for real. And unfortunately, the series only lasted one season. But I was very fortunate that I got to be a part of that season. And I landed a dream role of an Irish bare-knuckle, bare-chested boxer. And so in real life, anyway, I thought you might be amused to know that in real life I actually usually play, when I'm starting to get these roles, because my career has actually dramatically improved just in the last 2-3 years, and especially that role as the boxer, which, in case you're curious, you can see on YouTube. Just my fight scene. Like, I'm a principal in that episode, and I have a story arc, but there's a culmination where I have a boxing match with the lead, like the heroic lead of the show. So we had a minute-long fight scene, and it's the Old West. So we're surrounded by cowboys in this dingy saloon. And if you're curious to look it up, all you have to do is Google Kansas City Kid, and then you can see me as this Irish boxer in a 60-second long fight scene from CBS.
Let me see here. Is this the Pinkertons?
Correct.
Okay. I'm just going to have a quick watch. I'm curious now.
Yeah, well, it's only 60 seconds, so by all means.
Okay, and I guess we'll include this in the show as well. And viewers, if you want, you can go check this out now. Yes, please. I mean, it's the other exciting thing in my career, and people might be curious to know what I look like. And they might get a kick out of seeing, the voice of Lewa in a boxing match. Well, absolutely. Yeah, I'll have to watch this in its entirety later. That's really cool, though.
Yeah, that's me, the brown-haired guy. So yeah, in real life, I'm not the smallest guy. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon?
Oh, I was going to say that it's really cool that you're able to do such a variety of roles, that you can be the jokester on one show, and then you can be the guy who is all fights and punches in the next show.
Yeah. Well, get this one. This one might blow your mind. There's an app out there where I am the voice of Sparky the Fire Dog.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. You can make a note of that. It's a fire safety app for kids, and it's free. And in this one, it's just my voice, but I speak very gently, and, I enunciate properly, and I talk about Sparky the Fire Dog. And it's called Sparky's Birthday Surprise. And by all means, if you are curious, just have a look. It's a free app, and that's all my voice. So, again, a huge difference, between these actions, between fighting, boxing on TV, doing a cartoon, bionicle voice, and then doing story time for children.
Yeah, it sort of sounds like you've done a little bit of everything. Is there a role on a specific TV show or movie that you would absolutely love to play?
Would love to?
Yes.
Wow. That's Well, I guess I'd start to think about, I can say that the chance to play that was a boxing match did do that for me. That was kind of what I always wanted. Now, beyond that, I would love to play one of my political heroes. Now, I don't know that any of my political heroes were boxers necessarily. However, I have a lot of there are people that I just respect, like Louis Riel is a figure in Manitoba who stood for, he was a rebel and executed as such. But I mean, just look at Star Wars. Who do we cheer for? The rebels. So he was a Métis person, and he was educated in sort of Western ways, and so he was able to see the political transformation that was going to hit Manitoba, and he attempted as best as he could to take part in that transformation legitimately, politically. But when things didn't work out because of long-standing prejudice and and just this integration into North America. There was a rebellion in right where I was born and where I live here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And he's a polarizing figure, but history has come around to his side because, even 2-3 generations ago, he was seen as, a villain. And, but this view was perhaps influenced by prejudice. And anyway, so Louis Riel, but the thing is, I'm a white guy, so I have no right to play Louis Riel. but if I could play, I had really thought about that, like who would in my dream role to play on TV. Gee, I don't know, but I'm very happy that I got a chance to play a boxer because my granddad was a boxer actually, and so I feel like I was fortunate enough to get my kind of. I never thought I'd get that chance either, David. Like when it came up, I was 42 years old when I shot that boxing match. I didn't think that was going to happen for me, but I'm very happy that it did.
Okay, and how did you originally get into voice acting?
Well, I have been doing theater since I was in high school, or rather, even before that. I remember back in elementary school, there was a play that I took part in, and I had a loud voice. This is where I learned I had a loud voice and was able to, I guess I just wasn't a shy kid, so that led to participation in school plays, and then I used to like to produce improv comedy, kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway? And, I would rent a space and put up posters, and, my funny pals and I from high school would put on a show. And I had some success with that, and it took me a while to get around to the business of auditioning for people who, at first I just liked to do that sort of stuff, but I also did a lot of political stuff, but when I got more serious about auditioning, I eventually got something, and it was a cartoon that is based out of South Africa. It's called Supa Strikers, and the mispronunciation is intentional. It's actually spelled S-U-P-A, and then Strikers with an A instead of E-R. And I got in with DiCaprio on that cartoon, which is still going, and it's a big thing in South Africa. And then happily, DiCaprio took a shine to me, and they began to include me in other projects and commercials for Father's Day shopping center discount sale, I don't know, and something like that, and or there's an internet package to advertise in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and so DiCaprio basically they took me under their wing, and sometimes they would just give me work, voiceover work. Other times they would have me come in and read for various projects, and so over the years I've done lots of different things at DiCaprio, and that's where I did the Sparky the Fire Dog, and of course Bionicle. The work that I do at DiCaprio has been non-union stuff, which means that I don't always have a credit on them, and my name isn't listed. And so this LEGO Bionicle is the first time that my name has appeared, and I'm very grateful to everyone involved who allowed my name to appear in print with this project, because there was no guarantee on that. So someone was very thoughtful and allowed all the Winnipeg voice talent to have their names on screen.
Yeah, I guess that's good for fans as well, because it's always something you wonder is, all right, well, I know that what I'm watching is a movie or a TV show, and I can see the character there, but that voice sounds familiar. Where have I heard that before? I wonder what else this actor has done. And so when you get that, I always find it very interesting to see what other roles people have played.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a thrill to participate in something that is going to be, so widely seen, and with an internet LEGO with its, sterling international reputation. I loved LEGO. Can I talk for a second about how much, LEGO meant to me as a kid?
Go for it.
Okay, well, Christmas was LEGO time. That was what I wanted for Christmas. And I remember the spaceships that I built, in probably late 70s or early 80s. And it was just my favorite, building them. And have you ever heard of Meccano? That might be the British pronunciation, but do you know what I'm talking about?
Sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, well, don't giggle, but I believe they're called erector sets, because what they are is it's like basically little bits of stainless steel, it's nuts and bolts, and then, just pieces of metal that you build stuff, and it comes with a little wrench, and it was like the next step after Lego, but, it was both of these toys, and, Lego and then also Meccano, were, constructive. You got to make something and be a part of building it, and, the sense of accomplishment was so great, and I just remember how precious, these memories are very precious of building, the spaceship. What I remember also is, in the 70s and early 80s, there were no space aliens. There was no, I hate to put it so bluntly, but there was a lack of violence, I guess, or just there wasn't the enemy. There weren't weapons so much. I mean, your imagination was, you could do whatever you liked with your spaceship, but there, as far as I recall, in those days, a lot of the sets didn't come with, an inherent conflict, like, as in, like, here's the nasty, evil Martian who's trying to zap our, friendly Nickel spaceman. But, it didn't make any difference to me when I was, 8. I just loved my Lego toys.
Well, I think what you're saying absolutely is going to resonate with a lot of our fans, that they've probably had very similar experiences themselves. And I guess sort of Bionicle was the continuation of that, because it's not that different. I've got pictures of Meccano sets here, and I would say it's not all that different from stuff you could build with Bionicle. It's like the next step up from just building with bricks is that you're now building more complicated builds.
Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, like, the action in Bionicle is thrilling, and I love it. Like, I wish that I had been young enough to get into it, because I certainly, when after I was enjoying Lego toys when I was 8, I got into, the excitement of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So I loved this. I loved the swords and the shields and the beastly bad guys and the heroic He-Man and his pals. And so by no means am I trying to say that things were better back in the day. It's just my memory, those are my memories of the toys that I had as a kid. But, like, it was a part of my progression, so it was awesome, sort of like less conflict-based Lego toy sets. And then when I got older, I was really into, like, these neat Dungeons and Dragons toys, or I didn't go for G.I. Joe myself, but I preferred the fantasy characters of, with swords and shields instead of, like, the modern military toys. But if I had been of the age, I would have been all over Bionicle, and I'm kind of sorry that I'm 43, so when Bionicle got launched, I just wasn't, it wasn't my thing. But had I been, I'm sure I would have had everything. And, like my best friend Kevin, he's got what looks like an Okatoan, a green Okatoan at his house, and he sent me a picture, and he said, "Dude, is that you? This is my son's favorite piece of Lego right now." And, I said, I don't think it's me, but it could be an old Lewa, because, I'm aware that there's, the previous issues. But anyway, so it's a small world, and, Lego's been a part of my life anyway, since as far back as I can remember, and those toys, I love to get my hands on a vintage 1980, spaceship. Oh man, that would be the best.
So you were saying earlier that you were originally cast as both Tahu and Lewa. Were those the only parts you auditioned for, or were there others as well?
Just to be a little more specific, I read for both of those, and then I ultimately was cast as Lewa. So I was never cast as Tahu, but they did have me read all of episode 1 and 2 as Tahu, and they figured I was a better fit for Lewa. I guess I just have a youthful voice. I mean, like, I know some of the voice actors that are on the project, and, like, some of them are these kind of guys. Like, you know, that I'm not mocking them at all. They just have richer, deeper voices than me. That's okay for me. You know, like, my voice is a little higher pitched, I suppose, than certainly the guy who's playing Tahu. I had to listen to him, and yeah, he's got definitely a gruffer, or at least a richer, deeper voice than I do, and so they decided to go that way with Tahu, and looking at the size of the various characters, how Tahu is bigger and beefier, and Lewa is more slender, and of course athletic when you see him darting and springing around the trees in the jungle. I can see what they were going for, and I'm lucky that my voice suited that, you know, what they wanted out of Lewa, and lucky that Lewa was written so prominently in these first two episodes. Getting to fight Makuta and all that stuff was, you know, super fun.
Mm-hmm. Now, what sort of direction were you given to develop Lewa's voice?
Jokester, the prankster, the lighthearted one, the comic relief.
Okay. Now, I think something a lot of people would have noticed in the show is that Lewa's got a very particular, I don't know, cadence, or he says some very interesting. Has interesting wordings for things, which I think is I think a holdover of the previous series where he almost spoke like a different language in a way. Was it sort of odd reading those reading that unusual wording?
Yeah, that was a little bit odd. Yeah, because I I just wanted to be clear, it wasn't a typo, and of course, nope, not a typo. They definitely want you to use this incorrect grammar, and so I'm like, okay, well, that's what we're doing. And of course, I see the allusion ultimately to Tarzan, right? Me Tarzan, you Jane. So Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle, and Lewa, Master of Jungle. It wasn't too shocking. It was like, oh yeah, I can see why Lewa. So while you mentioned the earlier Bionicles, to me, I go back to Tarzan, since I didn't actually see much of the original Bionicle material.
And I wouldn't be too surprised if that's where they got their idea for it, because it was everyone who was from the jungle had sort of, like you say, that me Tarzan, you Jane type way of speaking.
Yeah, it's become an archetype now, hasn't it? The jungle, the Tarzan type. But yeah, at first I was like, okay, this is weird, but all right, let's go it. Sure, yeah, I get it. Tarzan talk for a minute. The direction that was that sort of practical jokester and the lightheartedness was what I didn't necessarily bring originally, and the director was like, "Yeah, we're this is who Lewa is to the group," and having not looked too closely at each one of the 6 characters and focusing on Lewa, I didn't really have that comparison, and then it became clear, oh yeah, I see what he's going for. So that was what needed a bit of shaping, but led it to Lewa. I think I had the most fun recording lines where Lewa was flying. As I was just kind of like, woohoo, and yeehaw, and because he's soaring through the air. So those are good times, It's, it may sound strange, but it's less fun to do the impact, like where I'm getting the crap kicked out of me, like, oof, ah, it is less fun than, yahoo! And Lewa gets beaten up. Even, he takes some beats from his own spirit creature. He gets, knocked down some trees. And there's plenty more action to come in episodes 3 and 4. That's going to be released later this year. So make sure you keep your eye on that, Bionicle fans. Plenty more fun.
Now, did you have a favorite line from the show?
Probably yeehaw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the flying stuff is my favorite.
Okay, that's not a bad favorite to have.
Yeah, I can't remember a particular line of dialogue that was, but as a voice actor for animation, like, there are battles, and in this case, my character. But I played a flying reindeer once, and that was similar. So I think that maybe that's why but who doesn't want to fly? I mean, so I'm lucky.
Absolutely.
I've got to fly with two characters. Yeah, there's a movie called Santa's Apprentice 2, and we did an English dub of a French film, like France, and beautiful animation. Gaumont was a studio, Gaumont, and I did a different project. This is all through the Capo. Thank you so much to Capo for all the work over the years. And I played a reindeer. I mean, all the reindeer fly, but I played this, basically a Rudolph equivalent. My name was Waldorf, and I think maybe I was remembering my flying when I was having a good time with Lewa, flying through the jungle and the air. I was remembering Waldorf from Santa's Apprentice 2.
I've just got a funny feeling that we might be seeing a lot of pictures of Lewa with reindeer antlers in the future from fans who make that connection.
Yeah, well, it's. I'm glad to be able to say that there's a couple other things that they can check out if they're curious as to what else I've done behind the mic or in front of the camera, as is the case with the Pinkertons.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Once again, that you just have this very varied career of voice acting, live acting, as well as you can just recall them so quickly to let people know if they want to see more of the voice of Lewa, where they should look.
Yes, well, bragging and bravado, my specialty. I'm working on a Johnny Cash thing too. I play guitar and sing, and it's my hope to get together kind of a Johnny Cash tribute show. So I got about 10 songs that I can play, and music is quite important to me, and I love to play guitar and sing. I used to sing I mentioned earlier that I used to busk, so I used to play outside liquor stores. And I'd sing, Beatles, Rolling Stones, Tom Petty, Weezer, Tragically Hip, just Sam Roberts, I love to sing and play guitar and express myself musically as well. And, just art. I was very lucky to have my mom always supported me, as far as pursuing the arts, and it hasn't always been, a career where I haven't always had a lot of money to splash around. I still don't, but I'm grateful that sticking with it has, in some ways paid off. In the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of things have gone my way, and certainly I'm grateful to my friends at Capo who have allowed me to stick around with them for 10 years. And if it wasn't for Capo, I wouldn't be speaking to you for sure, because I wouldn't have been a part of Bionicle.
Yeah, and certainly in talking to you, it sounds that you have a real passion for all forms of entertainment, and that you're able to do what you enjoy. So that's really nice to hear.
Thanks, Dave. Boy, I sure am lucky that to have stumbled onto something Bionicle that has inspired such loyalty. Like, I mean, it's huge. Wow. Even just talking to you makes me realize that I was very fortunate to be included in this project.
Yes, in one way or another, you have been immortalized as the voice of Lewa, which I think, while I guess the show is sort of gaining traction because it's got that, I guess, more exclusive release, so you can only watch it if you have Netflix. That I think as it gains that traction and more people become aware of it, that I think it will definitely down the line. I'm expecting it to be remembered as a bit of a classic.
Well, I hope so. Netflix is the place to be, don't you think, these days?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, yay! Thanks to Capo, thanks Nolan, Clint, and then, of course, Lego. Wow.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys as well. And thank you, David. You're a very pleasant guy, and it's been lots of fun chatting with you this afternoon. Are there any other questions you have for me?
I think that's it. Did you want to go through the lines?
Okay, let me call them up. I got them here. And I guess without further ado, I'll just get in there. Hope I don't mess this up. Actually, you know what? So, David, this would be a cold. I guess I can tell you a little something about the business. I haven't seen these yet, so this is what we call a cold read.
Oh.
Because I haven't studied them. Yeah. So this is a cold read, and which means I might flub. I may not be too good at this.
That's okay. We'll edit out the flubs. Okay.
All right. So I'll just go for it. Because you might have noticed in talking to me for almost an hour here that Lewa is a variation of my own voice. I'm because when they were going for that levity, the prankster stuff, they were going for what I felt was a more youthful, and energized version of my average everyday. Like I'll have a double and a multi-grain bagel with cream cheese. Like I don't order coffee that way. I'll have a double. So I do have to get into character a little bit for this. Anyway, I feel that I'm there. So okay, carrying on, and it's a cold read. So pardon my flubs, and hopefully I can get the sense of the line as I read it. Now, if I were in the booth, I would have no one say, "Okay, Jeff, now we're going to do this. Like, let's do," and he'd give me a little adjustment, and I try it that way. And then if he liked both takes, he'd say, "Okay, I'm going to keep that first one as an alternate, and we're going to use the second one." And then I would move on. if that is, he liked, what I was doing. Otherwise, I would get some direction and take it. Okay. I am Lewa. I roam the sky. I am here to battle evil. It is my destiny to claim my golden mask of power and become a master of jungle. Lewa, mystery king of know-nothingness. That's me. Walk? Ha! Not never. If you ride with me, there'll be no foot walking, just air flying. Very deep impressive. You will be remembered in legends as Regai, defeater of doors. I am a Toa hero, here to save you from whatever it is you need saving from. Where did these lines come from, by the way? Like fans?
These are sort of from everywhere. So this would be from, a lot of them are from the previous iteration of Lewa. So it would be from the books, from the comics, from the previous movies.
Wow, okay, cool.
I guess it's seeing your new interpretation of the character.
So has there only ever been, like, maybe you might know, you might not. Have there been a lot of different Lewa voices, or maybe just one or two?
Let me think. There was a Lewa in a movie that came out in 2003. Mm-hmm. Really, since then, he doesn't get a lot of voice actors for him. I mean, he technically, those animations you saw, that technically had a voice actor for him, but that was more the narrator. So, really, officially, there's only ever been one other Lewa.
Really? And it was kind of the narrator who did. That's why the voices all sounded so similar, because it was one guy.
Right, yeah.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I thought it was the same voice actor. And they, and it makes sense if he did a sort of a narration, like he was every voice of everything then. So, okay. Well, that's neat to know. Thanks for that. I was just curious about that. Okay, I'm ready to get back onto it. So if we win, everyone quick dies. And if we lose, everyone quick dies. Oh, those great beings and their wacky sense of humor. Ah, Toa of snow and slush. I'd almost ever forgotten how much fun you aren't. What? What's happening to me? My body. Not my own. My mind. Get out of my mind! Great. I get the team with personality. Hey, buddy. Even I fall sometimes. I go where I want, freeze brain.
Great. Thank you so much for reading all those. Yeah, they're it's sort of
no problem.
Sort of the last 10 years of Lewa across multiple forms of media, and a lot of them it's text only. So this is no one has ever officially voiced Lewa saying these lines before.
Well, that's pretty cool. Well, my pleasure. It's like, so, like, did you say books? Because yeah, I was in the library just for fun. I asked them and they showed me some scholastic-looking Bionicle books, so that was cool.
Yeah, so he's sort of been in and out of.
Were they?
Pardon me?
I was going to ask if there are video games, actually.
Yes, there is just about everything you can imagine. There are books, video games, comic books, sort of really Lego tried to throw everything they could at Bionicle to make it sell, and they made just about everything you can think of just to promote the line.
Well, that's cool. Like, I guess we're still seeing, what was released only 6 weeks ago. I guess we can, it's and there's still episodes 3 and 4. So I suppose we shall see. There might be more stuff coming out. That would be super fun, and that would be awesome if there was a video game or something that another video game got released, and if I got to participate, that would be sweet.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely. I think one criticism I've heard, and it's a sort of a good criticism, is that they're upset that there are only 4 episodes. Like they want more, which I think is something to be happy about, because they would absolutely love if you could do a full season of Bionicle TV show. And I think for a lot of people, the video games are what brought them into Bionicle. So there are certainly a lot of fans out there who are craving a lot more, and so fingers crossed that Lego delivers on that someday.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, awesome. Well, what a pleasure, and I look forward to hearing what you come up with our conversation here.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on the show, Geoff. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure. I had a good time. Thanks very much, and we'll talk again. Hopefully we'll talk again someday, David.
Yes, yeah, maybe after the other episodes come out, then we can discuss the end of the show.
Yeah, I'll be happy to.
All right, so that wraps up episode 6 of the new BS01 podcast, as well as our little series of interviews there. If you like them, let us know. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, or get in contact with us on the BS01 podcast website or on the regular BS01 site. There's lots of ways to get in contact with us. Let us know what you thought of the interviews, what you think of the podcast so far, things you'd like us to talk about, or other things you'd like us to do. And yeah, we're going to be taking a few weeks off, so the next episode should be coming out either late May or early June. Don't forget to submit your contest entries for the theme song contest. And yeah, that's about it. So this has been Spirit, and I will see you next time. So did you have any questions before we got started?
Not particularly. No. It's your podcast? Does it have, forgive my ignorance, is it just audio, or do you broadcast a video signal as well?
Just audio.
Oh, man, well, I got all dressed up for nothing. Sorry, excuse my language.
That's okay.
Okay, well, I can relax a little bit.